Hello, I'm Christian Fraser. It is day 26 of the US-Israel war with Iran, and over the next 10 minutes or so, we'll bring you our daily briefing with all the key updates on the conflict. Let's start with some of today's main developments. The US and Israel have continued to strike targets inside Iran. The IDF says they hit a research centre linked to the Iranian Navy in the central city of Isfahan. The Iranian military have released new footage of missiles being launched towards Israel and the Gulf. There have been reported strikes in northern Israel, in Kuwait, Jordan and Bahrain. In Kuwait, a drone struck a fuel tank at Kuwait's international airport, causing a huge fireball. Meanwhile, Israel continues to pound southern Lebanon and Beirut's southern suburbs. Hezbollah says it has responded with attacks on Israeli troops in Lebanese territory. Well, the United States is negotiating with itself. That is the defiant message from an Iranian military spokesperson today, rejecting claims from Donald Trump that Iran and the United States are in negotiations. Reports suggest the White House is negotiating through intermediaries, a 15-point peace plan, which has been communicated to Iranian officials by mediators in Pakistan. Donald Trump insists the right people are looking at it, but in the same breath, he said the United States have wiped out most of Iran's leadership. So, who is really in charge? With me is Siavash Adalan from the BBC's Persian service. Let's start with the talks themselves. If there is someone talking to Washington, who might that be?
It could be Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. He is the head of Iran's parliament, now probably a part of the High National Security Council as well. But that's just speculation. We don't exactly know who Donald Trump is talking about. The IRGC seems to be calling the shots. And already, whether it's IRGC or the government, they've rejected outright Trump's so-called 15-point peace plan, which includes the end of Iran's support for proxy groups, the end of Iran's nuclear programs, and the opening of the Strait of Hormuz.
Total surrender was the message from Donald Trump today.
Absolutely. And it was a non-starter, predictably, for Iran as well. So Iran, in reaction, put forth its own very maximalist demands. We have complete sovereignty, or should have complete sovereignty, over the Strait of Hormuz, that we need reparations for this attack. We need absolute ironclad guarantees that no attack will take place and all hostilities should
So if we have two maximalist plans and neither side prepared to move towards the other, do some of the worst instincts start to come back to the fore?
Well, the first question then is, will there be talks then? Will there be talks that it was being said it will be held in Islamabad, in Pakistan? It doesn't seem like there is going to be talks if no sides can, even on paper or in theory, meet each other's demands. And then from there on, it follows, if there are going to be no talks, would Trump's 5-day ultimatum for hitting Iran's power plant be coming back into force again, which then puts us back to where we were 3 days ago, worried that if the US strikes Iran's power plants, Iran also threatened to hit the power plants across the region. So we'll be back again to square one.
Siavash Adalan, thank you very much indeed. Well, Iran says it has reopened the Strait of Hormuz to non-hostile commercial shipping vessels from countries not involved in the fight. But any shipping that does want to pass has to first negotiate safe passage. There's been a virtual shutdown of the strait since the first days of the war, but some tankers from China, India and Pakistan have managed to negotiate a way through. One of the big questions a lot of our viewers are asking, of course, is whether oil and gas prices will come back down. I should say there's been a fall today. The cost of a barrel of crude did fall below $100, but prices remain high and the market is extremely volatile. Our business editor Simon Jack has been speaking to Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, a company which manages over $14 trillion of assets globally. He said sustained oil prices could yet lead to a global recession.
If there's a cessation of war, and yet Iran remains a threat to trade, a threat to the Straits of Hormuz, then I would argue that we could have years of above $100, closer to $150 oil.
What happens to the global economy if that happens? How do we see it?
We'll have global recession.
Well, let's get a thought on that from our economics editor, Faisal Islam. How do you square, Faisal, the brief respite we've had in oil prices today with the confusion over these negotiations?
Well, they're kind of one of the same things. We've seen wild movements in oil prices over as rumours kind of percolate out both from the White House and also from the responses from Iran. Today, as you say, oil prices are down a bit. They've been a bit stable. They've been bobbing around that $100 mark. And I think just to sort of reflect back on what Larry Fink of BlackRock said there, there's almost like two states that are being averaged out here, which is a kind of conflict that escalates, which is still entirely possible. And in that world, you do have $150 a barrel oil and, in his view, a recession. Or you have de-escalation where the oil price goes down quite substantially. And what you have is splitting the difference at 100. No one really knows where this goes in terms of the underlying defence and geopolitics. But there have been some permanent sorts of damage to things like the gas production in Qatar. And then also this general sense about, what is the new reality we have entered here, where even now, where some tankers have made it through the Straits of Hormuz, they have tended to hug the coast in terms of those maps that we can see of the sea traffic close to Iran, which is very suggestive of the fact they've got either permission or they may have even paid some sort of toll, which for kind of multi-million barrel tankers, works out maybe like $1 per barrel, so not as expensive as $1 million toll might suggest. So is that a new reality now? Has Iran established a precedent of control? Is that what we'll have to deal with? What would it mean to clear and reopen the Straits of Hormuz? Do we even know if the rest of the strait is mined? These are all imponderables that even if peace was reached tomorrow, which it's not going to be, would remain in the air.
There are, of course, countries in Asia that are already rationing fuel. How long do you think it is before Europe faces something similar?
Now, that's a really important question. Clearly, we have seen the main impact in Europe and the US in terms of the price. We've seen it at the petrol, gasoline pumps. We will see it in terms of domestic energy prices at home in the coming months, depending on arrangements on how those are fixed. But what matters, the biggest physical impact is the physical supply. And for example, countries like Pakistan are 99% dependent on exports of liquefied natural gas from Qatar. They're obviously locked in now. There are long-term concerns about the production there. And so yeah, I think you only have to go to the likes of the CEO of Shell, Wael Sawan, who told a conference in the last few hours that yes, that the physical supply of actual molecules rather than the price, it is affecting Asia right now. You're seeing some consequence of that. But Europe could be affected by next month. So now is the time for governments, if this conflict continues, to try and consider demand management measures, to consider storage, all these sorts of things. So yeah, a message there from the top of the energy industry about this physically affecting supplies, potentially in Europe, if this continues into next month.
Faisal, thank you very much for that. Well, a senior minister in the Israeli government has told the BBC today it's probably unlikely that Iran will agree to the reported 15-point peace proposal put forward by the United States. The economy minister, Nir Barkat, said Israel's main objectives were removing the threat of Iranian missiles, proxies and nuclear weapons. He's been speaking in Jerusalem to our Middle East correspondent, Lucy Williamson.
There's been a lot of speculation about how far Israel and the US are still aligned on those war goals and how to reach them. I mean, Israel definitely feels there is more to do to weaken the Iranian regime in order to get the kind of deal that Israel feels would stick. I mean, don't forget it was fighting a war with Iran just 8 months ago and said it started this one because the regime had started rebuilding its missile program, rebuilding its nuclear program. So I think Israel's point of view is that there is still a lot more to do before it can get the kind of deal it wants. But having said that, speaking to the economy minister today, it was also clear there is still very tight coordination with its US ally. So from what you've said, you know that you're very unlikely to get this deal from Iran.
Unfortunately, I probably agree with you.
Iran seems to be gaining some leverage in this war.
I think it's exactly the opposite. I think the world is recognizing who the bully is, who the threat is.
So if Iran doesn't have any leverage, why did President Trump back away from his ultimatum on the Strait of Hormuz?
Look, President Trump is a good negotiator. He knows how to negotiate. He's a businessman, so is Netanyahu. And give them that leeway to get those objectives. I think that everyone understands that on one hand, they are outreaching to see if the objectives can be reached today. Otherwise, if not, clearly it's going to get worse for them. And one day they'll have to decide which way they want to go.
Well, let us presume that there is a peace plan and that it is being negotiated. What are the terms and how does it differ from previous negotiating rounds? With me in the studio, our international editor, Jeremy Bowen. We've had a leaked copy of this 15-point plan. What do you see in it?
Well, it's the same kind of things which over the years the US and Israel have been demanding. It's like a wish list of all the things they've ever wanted Iran to do, which is a major reason why the Iranians have rejected it, because they have come back with their own list of unattainables, effectively, which the other side are unlikely to do. So, you know, the way you make a deal is that both sides give a bit. There's clearly, at this stage, no appetite whatever for that.
Caroline Leavitt's just said in the White House in the last few minutes that let's not get over our skis here, but there could be face-to-face meetings in Islamabad by the end of the week.
Well,
With who?
Yeah, let's see, because even when they were talking in Geneva, they weren't meeting face-to-face most of the time. They were in different rooms. I think the White House are really talking this up. You know, you might remember 24 hours ago, President Trump was saying that the Iranians are so beaten that they are desperate. I think that was the word they had. He said, and who wouldn't be desperate? They've lost everything. They've lost the leadership. It equates, he said, to regime change, the fact that they've killed the supreme leader and a lot of the people around him. No, it doesn't equate to regime change. This is, as a great expert in Iran was pointing out to me today, it is an institutional system. It's not a personal system. So you can change the faces, but the system is still there, which is why it's showing this resilience.
And meanwhile, the Marines are inbound, and now the 82nd Airborne are coming to the region. For what purpose?
Well, maybe they're trying to show resolve, back up, you know, a threat to the stick as well as the carrot, or perhaps they are the next stage if there is not a deal. And I'd say that if you were a betting person, you'd probably say there won't be a deal for now, that there will be some kind of American boots on the ground scenario. They've talked about maybe taking Karg Island, which is the main export terminal for Iranian oil, to put pressure on the regime. Yes, I mean, really, you know, elite, highly trained, extraordinarily well-armed troops, but not that many of them, actually. It's not like Iraq 2003, where I think at one point there were 300,000 troops involved from the US and its allies. The Brits alone sent 45,000 troops. So we're talking about getting on for 5,000 Marines at this point and a few thousand paratroopers. Formidable, maybe enough to take an island. They'd still have to hold it. And all along, the Iranians have shown they've got a plan, and they will have a plan for that.
And in Iraq, as you and I both know, because we were there, the Ba'athist structure disintegrated and local commanders started taking things into their own hands. If power is decentralized in Iran to that extent, then it's likely, is it not, that there are local colonels in different regions of Iran who are now calling the shots?
Well, their strategy for riding out the decapitation strike, as it's called, when they killed the supreme leader, was to already say to their local units, if you don't hear from us, don't just keep the missiles in storage, use them. But as well as that, at the same time, the regime is structured with these layers of interlocking institutions and a circle of people who've been working together for many, many years at the top as well. And that is structured for survival. So that the Iraq under Saddam Hussein, Libya under Colonel Gaddafi, that was one man and his family and his tribe and his cohorts. In Iran, there is a system. It's a different thing. And it's also absolutely ironclad religious ideology behind it, as well as nationalism. And that is a strong combination, as they're showing.
Crucially important perspective on where we are right now. Jeremy Bowen, thank you very much for that. Now, whether you're joining us on YouTube, TikTok, Sounds, radio or TV, thanks for your time today. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow, of course, with the Iran War Today.